I have been staring at this massive puzzle box for months now, and I can finally feel the pieces snapping together. Spider-Man Brand New Day is literally a masterclass in building suffocating, unbearable tension. For the longest time, we've had this heavy silence, right? Just a complete void, broken only by these tiny, fragmented whispers and incredibly blurry, leaked footage that honestly left me with way more questions than answers. It's like wandering through a maze blindfolded. But I've been meticulously piecing together exactly what is happening behind closed doors, and let me tell you, the waiting game is effectively over. We are standing right on the edge of a revelation that is going to completely shift the landscape of superhero cinema. The curtain is finally getting pulled back on what is arguably the most secretive project in recent Hollywood history, and the sheer unfiltered scale of what is coming is absolutely staggering. You thought you knew what this movie was going to be? Trust me, the reality is so much bigger. So I want you to lock a very specific date into your mind right now, June 17th. On this day, the silence officially breaks. I am tracking a massive, globally significant fan event taking place in Amsterdam, and I need you to understand that this isn't just some standard email blast. It's not a quiet digital drop or a standard press release. No, Tom Holland and Zendaya are physically stepping out onto a stage in the Netherlands to initiate something truly earth-shattering. Now, what's really fascinating to me here is the sheer physical presence required to launch this thing. Think about it. They are in the middle of these grueling international press tours for totally different projects, yet they are deliberately hitting the brakes to anchor this specific date. When you bring your leading stars out to a grand-scale physical event in Europe like this, you're not just casually uploading a trailer to the internet. You are attempting to create a global cultural moment. It's a carefully orchestrated detonation, and June 17th is absolute ground zero. And here is the best part. The promise here is a coordinated worldwide release rather than just an exclusive tease. I really need to make this crystal clear because we've all been burned by this before, right? This is not going to be one of those frustrating closed-door industry situations where a few lucky people at a convention get to see mind-blowing footage, while the rest of us are forced to frantically refresh social media to read some blurry text description. No way. I am seeing a perfectly coordinated worldwide strike. Whatever gets unveiled in Amsterdam with Tom and Zendaya is going to be instantly, simultaneously beamed across the entire globe. It perfectly mirrors the absolute most successful, high-stakes superhero marketing campaigns we've ever witnessed. Think about how those massive cinematic juggernauts have been treating their drops lately, teasing the entire world exactly 24 hours before blowing up the internet and completely dominating the cultural conversation for weeks. I firmly believe we're looking at that exact same aggressive, take-no-prisoners playbook here. But as we all brace ourselves for that footage to drop, the stakes actually get even higher when you uncover this one staggering number. I was looking into the theater listings, and AMC currently has this film locked in at an incredible 2 hours and 30 minutes. That officially makes Brand New Day the longest solo Spider-Man film ever created. It literally edges past No Way Home's colossal 2-hour and 28-minute runtime. I really want you to feel the weight of that duration for a second. 2.5 hours is a terrifying ticking clock when you consider the sheer amount of trauma, the isolation, and the brutal conflict this character is currently carrying. This isn't just an extended runtime for the sake of padding out a blockbuster. It is a sprawling, desperate marathon for Peter Parker. When I process that 150-minute stamp, I don't just see a long movie. I see an absolute narrative necessity. I see a story that demands massive breathing room simply because of the sheer crushing volume of destruction that's about to be thrown at our completely isolated hero. And honestly, here is exactly why every single one of those 150 minutes is absolutely required. When I started mapping out this threat matrix, I realized what a suffocating pressure cooker this movie actually is. Just look at the board. We're talking about the Department of Damage Control, the Punisher, Scorpion, the mystical deadly ninjas of the hand, Tombstone, and that's all physical. That's not even mentioning the heavy, lingering, emotional ghosts of MJ and Ned haunting Peter's every waking moment. I am painting a picture here of a hero who is entirely, completely surrounded on all sides. He has nowhere to breathe, zero backup, and absolutely nowhere to hide. I mean, how does one broke, isolated vigilante survive a gauntlet that includes lethal mercenaries, organized crime syndicates, highly funded government agencies, and ancient mystical clans all converging on him at the exact same time? This is not your simple everyday hero versus villain story. This is an absolute grueling war of attrition. That record-breaking runtime is honestly barely enough to contain the sheer chaos of all these forces violently colliding in the streets of New York City. Now, nestled right in the middle of this street-level war, I've been tracking a terrifying anomaly involving Bruce Banner. It reveals a dark, deeply unsettling psychological thriller sequence that totally changes the game. There is a deeply powerful character entering the fray here, played by Sadie Sink, who I strongly suspect possesses some profound telepathic or cosmic abilities. I am seeing a scenario where she doesn't just attack physically, she literally, violently invades Bruce Banner's mind. And from inside that mental prison, she initiates a terrifying psychological confrontation with Peter Parker. Peter obviously thinks he can stop her, right? But she holds the ultimate trump card. She deliberately, maliciously bypasses all of Banner's hard-earned psychological controls and fully awakens the Savage Hulk. Just imagine the sheer, visceral, cinematic terror of that moment. A mental invasion that triggers an absolutely unstoppable, rage-fueled monster right in the middle of a brutal, bloody gang war. It is an absolutely brilliant, terrifying escalation that Parker is completely, wildly unprepared to handle. Now, you'd think with a plot this incredibly dense, chaotic, and completely sprawling, the movie would just naturally collapse under its own massive weight. I certainly wondered if it would. But the most shocking revelation I've found points to the exact opposite reality. Internal reports are showing that early test screenings are completely, entirely off the charts. Think about this. Early audiences are sitting through the grueling 2.5-hour runtime. They are witnessing the Savage Hulk, the Punisher, the Hand, the absolute physical and mental destruction of Peter Parker, and they are walking out completely blown away. It is incredibly rare for a film with this many wildly different moving parts to score this high this early in the process. What that tells me is that the emotional core of the movie, that desperate, gritty survival story of a truly isolated Peter Parker, is cutting through all the noise. It's cutting through the action and the spectacle to strike absolute gold. The chaos isn't suffocating the narrative at all, it's actually elevating it. And I'm not just throwing around hyperbole here to build hype. The actual internal buzz is directly comparing this movie to Spider-Man 2. And incredibly, they are claiming it is testing better than Spider-Man No Way Home. I really want that to sink in for a second. Spider-Man 2 is widely regarded by fans and critics alike as the absolute zenith of superhero cinema. It is the gold standard of emotional storytelling and character stakes, and No Way Home? That was a generational cinematic event that literally captured lightning in a bottle. Yet I am seeing this brand new film being measured directly against these absolute untouchable titans, and somehow, against all odds, coming out on top. To test better than a film that triumphantly brought 3 entire generations of Spider-Man together? That means this dark, isolated, brutal story has tapped into something so incredibly raw and fundamentally compelling that it is completely eclipsing pure nostalgia. It's standing entirely on its own 2 feet. But, and there is a very heavy, dark cloud hanging over all of this. Despite these flawless test scores and the comparisons to absolute cinematic masterpieces, early indicators point to a highly divisive and utterly devastating final act. The test audiences who are praising the movie to the heavens are also walking away profoundly, genuinely crushed by how it concludes. The ending is apparently tearing the room right down the middle. This tells me something absolutely crucial. The filmmakers have completely abandoned the traditional, safe, crowd-pleasing superhero landing. They are taking a massive, deeply uncomfortable, and heartbreaking risk in the final moments of this 2-hour and 30-minute gauntlet, and it is intentionally leaving audiences emotionally wrecked. They aren't wrapping things up with a neat little bow to make us smile. They are leaning completely into the tragedy and the absolute, unrelenting sacrifice required to wear that mask in a city that is actively trying to destroy you. Which naturally leads me to the ultimate chilling theory currently radiating from that intensely divisive ending. It all comes down to one massive question. Will Peter Parker actually survive the final act? I am looking at a terrifying reality where the answer might actually be no. The devastation of the final act points directly to Peter fighting this impossible war, surviving the Hand, outlasting the Punisher, somehow surviving the Hulk, only to die completely alone at the end of it all. No tearful romantic reunion with MJ, no triumphant sunsetting happy ending, just a brutal final sacrifice for the city. And you know what the truly crazy part is? This exact heartbreaking sacrifice might be the precise narrative mechanism used to set up his resurrection by the Venom symbiote right in time for Secret Wars. It's a crushing, highly controversial, but undeniably brilliant gamble. So I have to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Ask yourself, are you really ready to watch the greatest Spider-Man movie ever made if the heavy price you have to pay is watching Peter Parker lose absolutely everything, including his own life?